The world's richest man, Mexican billionaire Carlos Slim, is getting even richer thanks to you and me. The media mogul, who has a net worth of $70 billion, also has a controlling stake in a company called TracFone. That company giving cell phones to low-income Americans as part of a federal program. The phones are being dubbed ObamaPhones, and we all pay for it in the form of a tax on our monthly phone bill. My next guest has recently introduced legislation to end the federally subsidized program. Here with more, Republican Congressman Tim Griffin from Arkansas. Congressman, welcome to the show. Tell us why you are opposed to this program.
Well, first of all, with regard to this specific program, the Lifeline program that started out as providing landlines, there's a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse. We have seen example after example where individuals have 10, 20, 30, 40 cell phones. Even here in Little Rock, we've had local news interview folks that say, well, I pay for a phone and then I keep my free phone as a backup phone at the house. So there's a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse in this specific program. But there's the broader question, and that is, why should the federal government be providing cell phone service to people?
Well, sir, you know, this is what they said at the time, way back during the Reagan era when they put this program into place. They wanted to make sure low-income Americans have the opportunities and security that phone service gives to folks. They wanted to be able to connect for jobs, family, and emergency services. What do you make of that? Is that a good reason to people free phones?
That's a good reason to give landlines. And back in the Reagan era, when that statement was made, it was landlines only. This program converted to cell phones a few years ago, and it went from a relatively reasonable amount of money to hundreds of millions to over $1 billion a year.
Well, let's look at those specific numbers. The cost of the federal government of the program last year, $1.6 billion. That's up from $772 million in 2008, so big increases. The thing that blew me away, frankly, Congressman, is the number of folks who are eligible to get free phones in this country. Nearly a third of the population, 80 million Americans, could get free phones that we subsidize. That just makes no sense to me. What do you say?
I think 80 million is probably a low number. We've used that same figure because we're confident that it's 80 million. But if you add up all the different folks who are eligible, you could get over even 100 million. And that's another point that I have made. It would be different if the people who truly could not afford some sort of emergency phone needed this. First of all, they can get a landline under the Lifeline program. My legislation does not impact landlines. And with landlines, we had very little waste, fraud, and abuse, because who wants 10 or 20 landlines in their house? Secondly, if you're going to come up with a cell phone that has a button that calls 911, well, that would be different. That's not what we've got.
Right, and we should note here, the TracFone is making about $10 per phone per month on this. And I want to ask you about a question about crony capitalism here. So the CEO of the company, Fred Pollock, contributed $156,000 to Obama. He hosted a $40,000 a plate fundraiser in Miami Beach at his home for the president. Do you think there's an issue here of friends of the president getting special treatment?
Well, I will say this. I don't know why this administration has been reluctant to kill this, except that they have encouraged dependency in a lot of different areas. But just to be fair here, this expansion to cell phones started in '06. A lot of the increase, the skyrocketing in the cost, occurred under this president. There's no doubt about it. I think ultimately this is the federal government with a bad policy, and a lot of these private sector companies are following the rules that the FCC and the federal government laid out. I don't know about this specific individual that you talk about as much, because I'm focused on killing the program, regardless of who is using it.
Well, I mean, this is just yet another example, it seems to me, of the government trying to get people to take things from the government so they therefore are dependent on the government. What do you say?
Well, here's the thing. A lot of people say, well, hey, these are good. People need a cell phone. It can help them if their car breaks down. Well, yeah. Well, should the federal government buy everyone jumper cables? Should the federal government put a first aid kit in everyone's trunk? I mean, where does it end is the question. And if someone is shut in their home, they can get the landline. That service is already provided. This cell phone thing is out of control. And by the way, if you want a cheap cell phone with a few minutes a month, not a smartphone, you can get those very reasonably priced. Right. And so we need to kill this program. If we can't deal with this, we're going to have a hard time dealing with a $16 trillion debt.
Yeah, it seems like something very small indeed, but very important. I think I'm really pleased you brought this story to our viewers. Thanks for coming on. If you get any traction on this story, let us know. We'll have you back.
People should tell their member of Congress to sign on to my bill.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. All right, now we want to know what you think. Here's our question tonight. Should the government give free cell phones to the poor? Log on to jerrywillis.com. Vote on the right-hand side of the screen. I'll share the results at the end of tonight's show.